Suzy, welcome to the Taste Toast Travel Podcast. I'm very excited to chat with you. I was just telling you a little bit before we even came on, I read your story and just like your experiences and how your family has transitioned from the US to Europe and it sounds like back and such. And I was just so curious to hear more, but you just the work that you do, but whether or not anyone here listening is a parent or not, I'm sure they can get so much out of your experience today. So, welcome. I'm very excited to have you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think I might have just given a little bit of this away, but it sounds like you had a really amazing experience in Seville of all places, which I absolutely love Seville. John has not been, but I have with a friend back in the day. And I mean, I still need to go to more places in Spain, but it is one of my favorite places so far. But it sounds like you made that move, that transition, liked it so much, and you really kind of made a life for yourself there.
Yes.
So I would just love for you to walk us through that. What prompted that? What prompted Spain specifically? And what did that transition look like for
Absolutely.
you and your family?
Yes. I'll take it back, I guess, to the start of our family. My husband grew
Yeah.
up in Germany, even though he's been in the US a long time. So he has two passports, the
Oh,
passport, German passport being one of them. So uh, our kids are now 6 and 8. And we knew early on, even before kids, that we would want to spend some time in Europe. We thought
mhm.
Germany. But I've lived there before. I lived there for 2 years even before I knew my husband, and then obviously he grew up there. And I mean, Germany's amazing, but winters are long. It's gray. It can be
Cold.
kind of bleak at times. So but and then once our kids were born, was speaking German with them from the get-go. So they were
Yeah,
getting plenty of German from,
amazing.
especially during the pandemic. We were all home for a lot of time together
Yeah.
with a baby and a 2-year-old and
Oh
then
my
a,
gosh.
one and a 3-year-old eventually. And so they had a lot of German exposure, but we also know that Spanish is a very important language in the world and
Oh, yeah.
there's so many opportunities to speak it in various countries and even in the United States it's very important. So I wanted to spend more time learning Spanish
Yeah.
than I wanted to work on my German. And also we're like, well, our kids are getting German. Let's start introducing Spanish into the mix. So we decided to do a year abroad. This was the 23-24 school year.
Okay.
And we basically thought, okay, let's do a German school in Spain because it's Spanish speaking. And we knew that with my husband's passport that we could stay at least for a full school year. We didn't have to worry about visas and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then probably by January of that first year, we're like, we really like this. Why did we think we'd only do 1 year? So I had only left my job for a year. They were really kind enough to let me take that time off. We sold our house in Denver and different things. So we did come back that fall. And then we went back to Sevilla in January to June of the following spring. And then that's what we're also doing this spring. So we've been back in Sevilla since January. We really did like that half and half, spending time with family in the fall in
Yeah.
Colorado. We did Germany for the last 2 summers. And then now we're back in Sevilla. And that's slow traveling. I consider us kind of a slow mad family
Yeah, I
by
love
spending
that.
a couple months here, a couple months there, a couple months there. My husband works remotely, so that helps with that. And then I did finally leave my job in Denver this last fall because, after like 3 years of coming and going, I was like, I think
They're like
I've maxed out on no, my supervisor was great, but she's like, yeah, maybe it's time. I was like, yeah, I think so. I was
yeah,
ready.
probably
I was
not.
ready to move on.
Yeah.
And so plus I also know that we're actually not going to come back to the US for this fall. We're actually going to do Japan through a Boundless Life world
That
schooling
has been
opportunity.
oh my gosh, I've heard of a Boundless yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, you might have to dig into
Yes.
more of that, but I would just say Japan is, like, very high on my list, so that's incredible.
Same for us. I've never been, my husband's never been. The kids watch Beyblades. There's just a lot of pop culture that refers to Japan. So I think kids early
That's
on are
kinda
very
helping,
familiar with
yeah.
Japanese, like certain aspects of Japanese culture. My
Yeah.
son loves sushi, and my other son, who's a very selective eater, will eat rice. So we're like, you know what? We gotta go.
Close enough.
Well, there's food for all of them. There's stuff they want to see and do.
Yeah.
I've heard so many amazing things from people that have gone. And then honestly, when this Boundless Life Hub opportunity, this is the first year that they're doing a cohort in
Okay.
Japan. That was also the ceiling, like the factor that made me want to really jump on this opportunity, because
Yeah.
I thought our kids are at a great age for this. We get that hand holding through having some support through Boundless Life, since
Yeah.
again, Japan is new to us.
Sure.
Whereas traveling around Europe, and even my husband and I have done some South and Central America before we had kids. I feel like we could do all that on our own, but Japan
Yeah.
feels a little intimidating. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to have some comforts and some welcoming opportunities while still getting to spend a couple months there and really explore what Japan has to offer. So that's
So
our background, I guess, is that we are really seeking out language opportunities. My
mm,
kids I really recommend it. I think, especially
yeah.
like you said, with your daughter who's 2, like this is it's amazing how much these kids can pick up
I
early on, and they don't get confused. It's like just do as much or little as you can, but even a little bit will get them on a great start, so that
Yeah.
at some point, if they have more opportunities, it just really is amazing what is possible. Again, we dropped my son off, but the now 8-year-old, to the first day of first grade here in Spain. I was like, oh, maybe we should have done some more Spanish, because I was like, what are we doing? He knew, like, he had like 1 hour a week in school the
Oh
year
god.
before, and we had done some online preply, but it was like not much. I
Yeah.
was like, what did I do? He doesn't know anything. And by December, he was chatting it up, and it's amazing what
Wow.
they I really only hear them speak Spanish with like their friends. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
they do know Spanish,
Oh, that
because
is
they don't
so
really
cool.
speak it
Is
to
or
me.
so are
But
the classes like, so this first grade that he's going into, it's purely Spanish taught? Like, it's not international school where it's, like, taught in English, or I don't even know how that
yeah,
works.
yes.
Okay.
So this is it is an international school. It's a private school. So
Okay.
we knew that we could apply ahead of time,
Sure.
and and know that we would have a spot, because that was kind of important to us before even coming over. But it is mainly Spanish students, like Spanish kids here in Sevilla,
Yeah.
that want their kids to also learn German. But starting in third grade, they start to learn English as well. So my son
Wow.
is now he's in third grade, the oldest, and
Got that
he's
covered, yeah.
pretty excited that he finally has like English class 1 hour a week. He's like,
Yeah.
but then he did tell me it's kind of boring because we're talking about colors. And
He's
I've
like,
been
"Been there,
meaning
done
to reach
that,
out
mom."
to the teacher and be like, "Can you challenge him a little or something?"
Oh, no,
But
yeah.
no, it's fun that he, I think, has something that he feels like he has an advantage in, because he knows that
Yeah.
when he came, he was not
The
in
opposite,
the
yeah.
advantage. Yeah, exactly. And that his classmates are so helpful. We've really learned a lot about the culture and families and community here through the school. School in Spain is a little different in the sense that it's from 9 to 2:30. So it's quite
Okay.
short school days.
Yeah.
Then you can choose to have your kids stay for lunch, the comedor, and after school activities, which we've done some of those because it's just an opportunity for them to get more language exposure.
Yeah.
And but then they're done like on Fridays for sure at 2:30. And so it's like a way to balance a lot. It's not like these
Yeah.
super long, exhausting days. We're not rushed in the morning
Ugh,
starting at 9 a.m.
as it should
Honestly,
be. Ugh.
I know, exactly. It's great. We also have designed our life here that's very convenient. Like, it's a 4-minute walk to the school. We did move to a different
Oh,
apartment last year that we sublet when we're not here. It's a 4-minute walk to school. The gym is across the street. The park is right there. We walked to tennis this evening. So we've kind of designed this really easy life for daily living. And
wow.
then, we go on weekends and explore, which has been really fun. But that is not something that we could design very easily in Denver. I mean, we're always in the
Yeah.
car, going everywhere to do anything.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot easier to design those 15. I was just telling my son tonight about 15-minute hubs, like where everything you need for kind of daily living is within that 15 minutes from home, and just makes it
Yeah.
so easy so that when I do have to drive somewhere, it's not as stressful because it's not something I'm doing every day. So,
Definitely, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so much driving here in the US, yes, which,
Yes.
love the car and everything, it's fine, but, they're like, when I've lived in Italy for the few times that I have, like, oh, having everything, like, at your disposal like that, but you still feel like you get out and, like, can experience other s
Exactly.
towns or city because it's so easy. The public transportation's
Mhm.
so much better, so it's just there's so many benefits. Okay, I have 2 follow-up questions. The first is for anyone here listening, maybe who isn't familiar with Boundless Life, can you just like give a very high level of like what that is, how that works? Because again, I've heard of it, but I've not like really dug into it, but I've heard it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many world schooling opportunities, I'll
Yeah.
say, and I feature a lot of them on my podcasts. I've been able to interview some amazing hub creators and leaders. One of them was Elodie, the co-founder of Boundless Life, and that episode
Okay.
will come out soon. So it was really fun to learn directly from her more about the origin story of Boundless Life. But Boundless Life started about 4 years ago, right after the pandemic. A lot of switch to online learning. And a group of people said, hey, let's create this opportunity for kids to do school in different parts of the world, 3-month cohorts. And they started in Sintra, Portugal. One of the co-founders is from Brazil, so that was kind of an easy language connection there. Lady is from France, but I spent a lot of time in Japan, so I think she was one that really led to the Kamakura cohort. But they have 8 or 9 other locations: South America, a lot of Europe,
Mhm.
and Bali, and then in Japan now. And I believe there's plans to expand as well. And it is a plug and play school opportunity is what I like to say. Like, you pay one fee and you get your housing, your co-working, your community support,
Oh,
your schooling for the kids. And so it's like set dates, you can plan ahead, and it would say that it's not I'll start again. It's not the cheapest option, I would say, but I
mhm.
briefly looked at what housing would cost in Japan otherwise, and I felt like it was
Mhm.
on par with that.
Mhm.
And then the schooling is a little bit more than our like private school in Spain, but private school in Spain is very cheap. We only pay about
Right.
450 euros per month here. But I would say it's much cheaper than what someone from the US would consider like a private school in
Yeah.
that
I won't
sense,
even
like a
tell you
school
what
that
we
you're
pay
paying
in
for.
daycare right now. It's
Okay,
it's
exactly. Oh yeah.
hard to swallow. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. No, I hear you. Those years were rough. I will say though, now that we're a little past them and we're still choosing to pay for stuff, but it's school, I it's like I do feel like it kind of
It's worth it.
went by in a blink of an eye. Like, I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
forgot that we were paying thousands every
Yes.
month. I mean, so if that gives you any hope that there
It
is
helps a little bit,
someday a
yeah.
light at the end of the tunnel, but yes, so and then what else? You get the co-working space and the community opportunities. I think I've heard from other people that have really enjoyed their opportunity. I think
Yeah.
that there are many ways to world school. There's many ways to travel as a family. It
Mhm.
may or may not work for every family, but from the ones that have done it that I've met and my excitement for it, I know it's going to be a really awesome opportunity to
Yeah.
basically live with other families and have some ease into the community. And when you're there for 3 months, you really see the changes in the city that you're living in. You get to know some
Yes.
of your neighbors a little bit, but you are going to have that community. The program is in English, but it's a Finnish curriculum, I believe.
Okay.
So, but they do a lot of experiential learning. They do field trips. There's some like conversational Japanese, of course, because you're in Japan, and a lot of it's focused on the culture of the community. So I think it's a really cool way to learn while still giving kids, I guess, some type of educational program. They can even provide transcripts if you need it for whatever program you're in back at home. So I think that's a really cool way to fill in some gaps, especially for families that really do want to continue in more of a formal education
Yeah.
system. I mean, there's plenty of families that hit the road and do like world like homeschooling style or unschooling. There's just so many different ways to approach it. But
Yeah.
our kids really do enjoy being around other kids. They like to be part of a group. I think
Yeah.
that they get benefits, especially when we're in Spain. They get the language benefits. I can't teach them Spanish. I don't know it.
Right.
My
You're like, "I'm still
husband
learning myself." Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And my husband does German a lot with them, but there's only so many hours a day when he's also working. So it's really
Yeah.
nice that they get this academic aspect of it too. But again, here
Definitely.
it's shorter days. They're getting a lot of playtime. I presume that's going to be the same in Boundless Life. I think the days are like 9 to 3. So
Okay.
they're shorter days for kids. It's not super exhausting. There's still plenty of hours in the day to just explore wherever you're at.
Yeah. As they should. Yeah, especially if you're, oh my gosh, going to an entirely new country and like I love that transition though, especially I mean, gosh, especially going to Japan and the language barrier for sure to just be so thrown right in. And some people love that. So that's, but I still feel like in some ways you're still getting thrown in, but in like a slightly more digestible way that's
Exactly.
just like just softens the landing a little bit with some of the things that it sounds like they arrange for you and,
Absolutely.
will ease your kids in. Because 'cause I'm sure a lot of people, maybe here listening or just, in general, worry about how their kids might acclimate to, oh my gosh, a new city or country wherever, but like, with such culture shock, like always wanna make sure your kids, like, yeah, are comfortable.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
curious, just this is almost more selfishly for me, but, like, because we're trying to teach our daughter Italian as well,
Yeah.
but
Oh, cool.
we know it, but, like, we're still very much learning too. I should know more given, I don't know, just my experience with Italy so far. But, um, how this is a kind of a broad question, but, like, how have you and your husband navigated teaching them German and, like, just integrating that? Do they, because I see this all the time on, like, social media too, and, like, how they can go back and forth and everything. So, like, how has your husband done that with them?
Absolutely. We started basically at birth with the one parent, one language. And
Okay.
again,
I was wondering
there's
about
a
that.
lot of ways to introduce 2 or 3 languages to kids.
Yeah,
It somewhat does depend on what languages are available to the parents. And
sure.
certainly, if one person grew up speaking that language, it's much easier for them to default to that, even though,
Yeah,
of course, like he's been speaking English primarily for quite a few years.
right.
But that really started off from the get-go, and it actually was easier when they were little because now they usually respond in English and he'll respond in German, but then sometimes the English comes out because of course that is also our family language. Like I
Yeah.
understand what they're talking about in German, but even living there for 2 years and hearing it every day for the last 8 or 9 years, I will not
I
say that
still
I
don't
am
quite get
at
all of
all an expert in German. It's a very tough language.
it.
I will
Yeah.
also say at some point, if and when, or if you do any TV and stuff, like we have you leaned on it, especially because, like I said, during the pandemic, we had a baby and a toddler. So it was like, okay, we're just going to throw some
We
Bob
gotta
de
share.
Bon, this
Yeah.
like German show on for my oldest.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
actually think there's a lot of amazing, like, educational shows in certain languages. It's like
Yes.
not even Netflix that you can, of course, turn into whatever language for some of those shows.
Yeah.
But I would encourage any media in that target language, especially if
Mhm.
one or both the parents don't necessarily speak that language very well.
Yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
if it's not a native language for one of the parents, you could just practice the time and place method. Say,
Mm.
okay, dinner time. Like when you're well, maybe with a toddler, that's not always like the the easiest time together. Let's maybe at the park or something.
Depends on the day.
If there's yeah, at the park, it's like, okay, at the park, I'm going to try to speak Italian to my child. And
Yes.
so you're putting this effort during certain times and places, but
I
you're not
love
trying
that.
to do it all the time and then beating yourself up because, oh my gosh, I defaulted to English. Because again,
Right.
sometimes that's not your go to language if it's not the
Yeah.
one you grew up with. And so it could just be a time and a place thing. And then seeking out people that speak that target language in your
Yep.
community. There might be like an Italian American Chamber of Commerce that
Yeah.
has Italian speakers that would be willing to, hey, if you're going to get a babysitter, get one that speaks Italian.
So
Or,
smart. Yeah.
and then once the kiddo, like around, my son was like 4 or 5, and we did some out school classes in Spanish to help him prepare. So at some
Mhm.
point, they could do some online stuff. He did one-on-one tutors with Preply for a while. That
Okay.
was really fun because he could actually focus for about 25 minutes and get that direct input in
Yeah.
that target language. So I actually just did an episode recently on language learning because it's really something I'm passionate about
It's
is
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. And just seeing how kids pick it up, it can be amazing. But I will say that it does sometimes take some effort. Like you've thought about
Yeah.
how to do this, right? And it doesn't come easily, especially if that language is not original to either the parent. So just being
Mhm.
intentional though, and like the more you introduce it, the better. And if you travel there, look for camps and things. And there are so many world schooling opportunities, but a lot of those end up being in English, which again is something that is great for, like, we're hosting the pop-up hub in Naples actually at the end of April. So I was just spending all
Okay.
day today looking at Naples, Italy stuff. And a lot of it was in Italian. And I'm like, oh, there are similarities with Spanish. Like, this is kind of going to be fun
Yes.
to be in Italy,
Yeah.
knowing a little more Spanish than I knew last time I was in Italy. So let's see. I got distracted. Sorry. I could talk all day.
You're like, "I'm just so
Oh,
passionate about."
but I guess what I say, oh, Yes, it's fun to do world schooling opportunities. It's fun to do things where you get to just be around other kids and travel and have fun.
Yeah.
But there are lots of ways to travel to these countries where there's a target language like Italy for you and do
Yeah.
summer camps, or even
Great
there's a
point.
Boundless hub in Italy. Or like if you're, maybe you want the more Italian though, you could come in the summer and like there are summer camps and different things like
Yeah.
that. So, or, if a kid's young enough, you could start with like even a couple hours a day of like a nanny or a tutor or something, depending on the age
That's
of the
so
kiddo.
smart. Yeah, well, especially I mean, her being 2, you know how a 2-year-old is, their attention span is about yay big. But but I actually love that time and place thing as well, 'cause, yeah, I think for us, like, that's the tough part is, like, it's not our native language, so
Hmm.
it's not like, sometimes we don't even know, we're like, "Oh, I don't think I'm even saying that right." So it's like, if she's hearing it, she's hearing it wrong. So there's just so many benefits, of course, to being in the country, and that's something we really want for her, and so that's why we're like, "If we're gonna do this, like, maybe sooner than later, because then the earlier you start, the better, of course, always.
Exactly.
But I like that method because it's manageable and yeah.
And maybe story time is your time and place,
Yes,
because if
yeah.
you're reading books in Italian,
Yep.
if you need to like translate it ahead of time, so if
Yes.
there's words that you're not sure, like I
Yeah.
actually had some books, my husband, they were in English, but then like we didn't have as many German books right away. And he would write in German the words so he could just
Okay.
read the German. Like not in the moment of like reading it to our kids was he translating. He had done
Right.
it previously. So
Mhm.
like the images matched, they were young enough. They were mainly just like get the pictures. But that
Yeah.
was nice that he could read it in German ahead of time, even though it was a book that was in English, but he
So
translated it ahead of
good.
time. So maybe
Yeah.
that's your time and
They're not
place for
long
now is
books,
just
so
story
that
time.
won't Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my god, that's another great idea. We do have some Italian books, but yeah, we
Oh,
really
fun.
haven't done I mean, it's also because 'cause we're trying to not do a ton of screen time with her, but listen, we do put on Miss Rachel, like, let me be so real. Like, there are times where you just need to. But I also think if it's for something educational like that, and it's something that, like, maybe we don't have the highest confidence in teaching her, and, like, sometimes TV there's so
Yeah.
many Italians that I've spoken to over the years where a lot of them, like, credit TV for how they learned English. They were watched
Yes.
Friends,
Around the
they
world.
watched
Yes.
whatever, so there's some I'm just like, "Okay, we're
Look
gonna
for
do
like
TV
the
time, like, at least it's
Yeah,
productive."
exactly. I look for the PBS Kids style version in Italian.
Yeah.
I imagine it exists, but the German version of it is this Sende mit dem Maus show, and honestly, it is like so boring. They are just like talking slow and monotone, and they're doing something totally educational, and my kids are just glued to it because it's a screen. But I'm like, hey, this is great, But
It's effective.
now yeah, I mean, they're older now. If they watch Netflix and it's in Spanish or German, they just speak so fast because it's just
Yeah.
translated. But it's actually
Yep.
nice if you look for the PBS Kids style version of the
Yes.
language. That
Definitely.
slower, more educational, I think is like a happy medium on the
Yeah.
screen time stuff.
I love that. Okay, so smart, great recommendations. I wanna shift just slightly back to your like, this gap year essentially, like, just the whole process of moving abroad. Because like, I know one of the things that you talk about or are kind of an expert in, I would say, is, just the considerations for planning a gap year, financial considerations, logistical benefits and considerations there. So because when you first went to Sevilla, correct me, did you use one of these, like the that you're gonna be using now, or you just kind of went and did that and logistically figured it out all on your own, or how
Yes.
did that
Yes. I'll
work?
take you back to, I guess, like the pandemic. We moved to a little bigger house because we needed a yard in
Yeah.
2020. And so that kind of delayed us by a year, but we did a test trip the summer of 2022. We did 2-month road trip to Canada. And that was our way to practice renting out our house and setting up those systems to rent out our
Mhm.
house. And I'm actually working on an ebook for that because I think it's so helpful to have some guidance in how to do this. Because
Yes.
if you can swap expenses, it makes travel a lot more affordable. And when I
Mhm.
say swap, I mean we are covering all of those expenses at home through
Yep.
renting our house out, which means all the expenses we have now are like rent here, and those things can be covered through our like all the income sources we've developed over the years. But mainly
Sure.
my husband works remotely, so that helps.
That helps a lot.
And
Yeah.
and so it's like that's what really made it possible, was figuring out the systems to rent our house out at home
Mhm.
and then getting a remote job, which was a lot easier, I would say, maybe in 2021 when he switched to this company. But
Yeah.
there are plenty of companies out there that are remote first. Like he's never even
Mhm.
met his boss. Like there's no office to return to. And then the
Wow.
smaller the company, the better. They're going to be more open to letting you live in different places. And
Mhm.
there are a lot of websites that really do focus on those exact jobs. So
Yeah.
the other way is to start your own business or rental income. There's lots of different ways to do it. And I've really enjoyed learning from different families how they've done it on the podcast that I've featured. Like I ask everyone, like, how do you afford this, right? How do you make this
Yeah.
possible? What
I
I
think this is the
also
biggest
realize,
question of,
yeah,
like, people
exactly.
trying to make this move. They're like, "How are you doing it?" Yeah,
Yeah.
just how are you doing it financially? Yep.
Well, part of it is because when we take a 2-week trip to Italy or to Spain, like we are spending a lot of money because
Yeah.
plane tickets and hotels, and we're going around to do as much as we can in a short period of time.
Yeah.
When we think about that, we're like, oh, there's no way I can do this long term. But when you're living somewhere long term, your
Yeah.
expenses are very different, and we actually spend a lot more, or sorry, excuse me, a lot less on groceries here in Spain than we do, even though we actually eat out most every weekend. We spend a
Yeah.
lot more here for food, a lot less, I'm sorry, for food here. I track every dollar and I have for like 10 years. So I find it fascinating to see these differences. I
Yeah.
will say though, I mean, we do spend in other ways. We just spent a weekend in Merida, Spain, and between hotels and stuff, we spent maybe $350 this weekend.
Yeah.
But if I was coming from the US, it would have cost a lot more. But here I am just
Yeah.
driving up for the weekend. And so
Ah,
getting to do things that I'm really excited about too. So
yeah.
but that's what if you can rent your house out at home, or some people even throw stuff in storage and completely get rid of that expense at
Yeah.
home, then it frees up some opportunities to take a gap year. And some people save up money. They just like pile away some money, or they sell their home because they know they're not coming back to that area, and
Yeah.
they earmark some of the gains of that home sale to travel. So I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of different ways to approach it. But at the end of the day, often you can choose countries where maybe you have to go a little shorter in these, like Paris. You're not going to maybe spend forever in Paris if you're on a budget. But
Yeah.
now you can, there's certain countries that you probably could spend a month or two or three for, $3,000 to $4,000 a month between accommodations and activities and things like that. So I've seen
Yeah.
families do it on all different price points. And it's really just about like what someone can put together for a travel budget, how much they want to save up, how long they want to travel, how flexible they
Yeah.
are. Having that first year, when I knew that I was going back to my job after a year, that also was very freeing to say like, oh, I'm just
Yeah.
taking some time off, and it's pretty impressive what is possible if you just talk to your employer and ask them,
Yeah.
and like help make it easy for them perhaps
Yes.
for you to be gone. It takes them longer to hire and train someone new, to be honest, than it is to just let
True.
you take some time off, depending on the job, of
In a lot
course.
of cases. Yeah, no, that's so
Exactly.
true. Or taking a little hiatus, even if it's not a full year. Like I love what you said about kind of also taking like a shorter trip, almost like a little test run with running the
Absolutely.
house out, right? You're with with your road trip to Canada, like that was a nice little like taste of what that could be like. See if everyone's okay with it, see how just logistics all worked out. And then I feel like making a bigger move, if you will, for a longer period of time, different country, whatever, doesn't feel maybe as overwhelming. So
Exactly.
that's a great
And also we
consideration.
learned, because our kids were 2 and 4 that summer, so
Uh-huh.
right alongside the, age of your
Yeah.
kiddo, was we realized that even though I thought we were traveling slow in Canada, like we did a week in each location, it was
Yeah.
not slow enough, just with the needing nap time and trying to fit stuff in around
Ugh,
this and that, and
yeah.
so that's where we said, okay, we really want to slow down. So we're going to go do 1 year in one location.
Yeah.
And that was what led us to do a full year the following school year. And then
Yeah.
then it was half and half for a while, and now we'll do Japan this fall and then back to Spain next spring, and then I don't know after that. I have some ideas and hopes, but I'm also needing
So
to
exciting.
incorporate my family and their needs, of course, and my kids are
Yes.
getting older and bigger and have more
Yeah.
opinions. But thankfully my oldest is pretty much like goes with the flow still. So
I love
hopefully
that.
that continues for a little while longer, that we can just keep slow traveling in some capacity
Yeah.
until, till it doesn't work for one or all of us anymore. But so far,
Yeah.
so good. So we're pretty excited about that.
Let's keep that going. Yeah, I was wondering about that too,
Exactly.
because at some point, like, some people might be like, "Oh, is it kind of, taking for like 3 months here and 3 months there and whatever, is that hard to really feel like you have roots anywhere, or is it taking them away from their friends and things like that?" And like, this actually segues perfectly into a question I wanted to ask you, was just like, what benefits have you seen either in yourself, you as a couple, your kids as a family, just yeah, just the benefits of how all of your worlds have been opened up by slow traveling and living in different countries and all the things.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there are definitely some considerations, of course, and I feel like you would know if your kids are not okay and really, like, struggling with the transition. It sounds like they are, yours at least, are good for right now, but, yeah, maybe just for anyone here listening who's maybe has some pause or concern about that, what
Absolutely.
would you say you've taken away from it?
That's where I think starting young can be really helpful. And when
Yeah,
we
'cause they kinda don't
first
know any
moved over
different, like
here, yeah, they were like just almost 4 and 6, and they were like, okay. And, they really, I don't know if they like just being with us in that regard. Like they like when they're
Mhm.
at school and they've built up friends here. So, but they're really easygoing. So I think it all depends on personality. But I think we've worked on creating a family dynamic that is like we are their stability. So even if like their home changes, the
Yeah.
family is stable.
Yeah.
And I think that can make a difference for some kiddos that are needing that or desiring that,
Yeah.
is to make sure that, like just keep reminding them like wherever we are is home.
Home is where,
Wherever the
like
parents
yeah, yeah,
are, the
yeah,
heart
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Exactly. And because we have quite a bit of family in Colorado, we will always spend a chunk of time there. And so it's
mhm,
great to keep up connections with family, but there's so many ways to do it digitally now, like with
yeah.
video calls and things like that. My oldest son has a pretty good friend that from the kindergarten year he did in Denver that we keep in touch with. And I let him text his mom's friend through my phone. So,
I love that.
we've had some ways that we allow him to keep in communication with a friend and a cousin back home.
Yeah.
But I think that's actually what's worked well is that when we come back to Spain, it's not like a whole new location. It is like a
Yeah.
school and a community that they've gotten to know really well. So
Yeah.
if there is any concern for that, there could be a way to say, actually, then I'm not going to just travel all around the world because, of
Yeah.
course, that sounds fun.
Have a
But with
little bit of a
kids,
home base, like
yeah, you have a little bit of a home base or 2 home bases, and then you
yep.
could look for things like Boundless Life where you're gonna have this built-in network of friends there, and I like to think of it is that we're just building the number of friends around the world that our family has, and
Yeah.
my I have heard of other world schooling kids that, especially as they get older, they keep in touch with friends that they've met at hubs or opportunities.
Yeah.
And then it's amazing, like where you'll have another opportunity to meet up with them again.
Yeah.
And like to be able to be like, hey, we've met up on a couple different countries or continents, I do think is just also a really cool way to add depth to a friendship.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because my husband grew up in Germany, but actually moved to the US when he was 17. And he is so close with his friends from elementary, primaria school. Like
Yeah.
he is very close with them. We just went to a wedding there. And yet he wasn't even in Germany as like an adult. He hasn't been there in like 20 years, but he's really
Yeah.
close with them. Whereas I live like an hour away from where I grew up in Colorado when we're there. And I just haven't kept in as like I'm not friends with anyone that I knew from elementary or anything. I think I
Yeah.
just moved around too much or something or whatever shifted. So I do also remind myself that like even though friendships and relationships are important right now, they're really not that important until maybe like teen years. So I do
Yeah.
realize
Yeah.
that our time frame might, not last forever on this like travel
Mhm.
as a family situation. I know that at some point there might be more need for being in one area or a stronger friend group. But I
Mhm.
think it's worth taking advantage of that, the seasons of life that
Yeah.
you have with your needs, but also with your kids' needs. And that's where, I kind of step back and look and I'm like, okay, the first 10 years of their life, we're trying to focus on language and introducing them to different things and different people. But as they're a little older, maybe we can do some more fast travel trips where
Yeah.
we go to some places that are more challenging that would stretch us in new and different ways. But honestly, like would not be that fun right now because right now at 6 and 8, they they're not as into like Roman history, like running
Fair enough.
around Roman ruins is more just like, how fast can we circle this
Yeah.
amphitheater that's 2,000 years old? Whereas I am
Yeah.
fascinated with this history. So it's,
Yes.
we all approach it in different ways. But I'd say overall, the benefit is I do think they're very flexible and adaptable. We take a lot of
Yeah.
public transit here. They were at last night. They were at a soccer game that had 70,000 people in the stadium, and it was the crosstown rivalry game here in Sevilla,
Uh-huh.
and it was like just cool to be there and see this like cultural
Crazy.
event, but also there's just so many things that can benefit from travel. And I also
Yeah.
don't think it's easy to always put a word on it, like put a label on what those experiences are like.
Yeah.
But I do see them more open-minded and more flexible. And if we go somewhere where we don't speak the language at all, they're not phased by it because
Right.
they've heard quite a few languages before. So I think it's been lovely. And I'll say for me, I just feel like we've developed so many memories as a family already that I know I will value more than just what we can do in our own home base. Again, I
Maybe
love
slightly more
Colorado.
limited. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but like having grown up there, spent a lot of time there, I'm like, it's kind of the same old thing. And like, I just
Yeah.
love that we get to do this travel. So, I think I always say like, happy parent, happy kids, right?
Yeah, definitely, especially as happy moms, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I love that. That's so inspiring and just oh my gosh, what and it just makes kids just so much more, I think, like empathetic and understanding of other cultures, just a little more accepting and just yeah, and like you said, kind of maybe not as phased if adversity in whatever way, shape, or form comes their way because they're like, okay, I've dealt with some stuff like this before. Like, I'm good. I got it, and maybe again, personality, big part there. But yeah, I've seen that. And I've had a couple family members and family friends and stuff like live in other countries when they were younger and like just it stays with you. If not the language, just the
Mhm.
experiences, the memories, all of the things. And yeah, it's
Mhm.
amazing. So cool. All right. So my last question for you as we sort of wrap this up is like, let's say, and again, whether anyone here listening has kids or not, it's just thinking of making the leap to wherever they dream of going. What is a tip, a piece of guidance, word of wisdom, something to keep in mind that you would tell that person listening here today?
Yes.
I know it's a big question. You've already kind of given
Well,
us a lot too
yeah.
to consider, but
A
if
and
there's
that's why I
anything else.
pause because the test trip is often my first advice
Yeah.
is and people are like, "Well, I've traveled before." So I feel like I've done that. And I'm like,
A little
I think it's
different.
a different mindset
Yeah.
because not only are you maybe testing out renting your house out and things like that,
Mhm.
but I'll be honest, we actually even have gotten our systems down. Like when we were in Colorado, we would rent it out over Thanksgiving and then go stay in a trusted house sitter house sit. So like
Yeah.
get paid to go stay somewhere else for free.
I
So
love that.
like we didn't normally do it for just like weekends. It's a lot of work, to get your house
Yeah.
clean and stuff. But
Yep.
for holidays, it was worth it. So you could set those systems up, but take that test trip where you're not going to go to Europe and see like 7 countries in a week or something, even though in theory you could, right? You could
It's
totally
tempting.
train and you could do it. And I get the temptation, but say, I'm actually going to pick one location. I'm going to stay longer than maybe my first inclination to stay
Yeah.
is. And I'm going to not just look for accommodation right in the tourist center, but maybe outside of it a little bit
Mhm.
and practice taking public transit and look for those cultural events that you would really only see and do when you have a longer time in that
Yes.
country or that
Yeah.
city even. Having been in Sevilla now quite a while, I feel like there's so many things to do that I wouldn't have even known about if I was like, oh, 3 days in Sevilla.
Totally.
And I would do the top things and move on. And that's
Yeah.
fine because there are a lot of other cool places to see. But there's so many other things that are just outside of the tourist center that offer just a lot of depth culturally.
Yeah.
You get to see how people really live and you get to be part
Mhm.
of the rhythms of community, especially in Spain when you try to go to dinner at 6 or 7 and nothing's open. It's because that's not part of the rhythm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the earlier and quicker you adapt to that is actually better. You're like, oh, it
Yes.
totally makes sense to me why this life is like the way it is now. It just really clicks. It makes total sense once you've been in that community for a while. So I would
Definitely.
recommend like having a home base, thinking about it a little differently, taking that
Mhm.
slow travel mindset. And then maybe from that home base in that country, you do a day trip or stuff like that. And so you can still like
Yeah.
see a lot without having to pack up and go and pack up and go and move and move and move. I
Yeah,
also
that's
encourage like
amazing.
language classes or dance classes or yoga classes, even. I
Yeah.
learned so much Spanish the first year here because I could walk to a yoga class and I went twice a week. And I was like, oh, I learned so many words from taking a yoga class
Right.
in Spanish. And so there's so many things that you could do if you're in an area for longer that you
Yeah.
wouldn't maybe think to do at first.
Off the
Cooking
beaten path.
classes are one of my favorite things to do in a especially in like Southeast Asia or Thailand where the food is so
Oh, I
amazing.
mean, it's incredible. Even in Spain, I mean, oh, I'll take it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
But yeah,
great,
that
great advice.
yeah, like take that test trip with the mindset of I'm going to slow down. I'm really going to soak up the culture. I'm really going to think about this differently like than a vacation, but more
Yeah.
what is it like to really live in this country or this community that I've chosen. Also, I think it's helpful to connect to why it's important to travel.
Yeah.
Like you have a strong connection to Italy, right? And it just makes it that much more meaningful when you are in that area. And
Yeah.
even though, Europe obviously is kind of important to my husband and family, just like the whole area. And so being able to spend a lot of time in Spain has really opened up other opportunities to see, go to Germany and see family a lot
Yeah.
easier and have them come visit us. But maybe there's a country in your family heritage or family origin story that would be really cool to dive into. And then, so by the
Yes.
time you go there, it just is even that much more meaningful than just, oh, I'm going to go see this because I mean, it's
Just
great
'cause, like,
country to go
yeah.
to. Yeah. Like try to
Yeah.
find some extra meaning, I think can also offer depth to someone's travels.
Definitely. It's all about the mindset, I feel like, and it's so funny because we have some family here who are, how do I say this? More closed-minded, and they just have no desire to even really travel, let alone, it's they almost, like, can't understand why we would wanna go abroad or live abroad or whatever, and so that's tough sometimes, when you have these people that are the closest to you that kinda don't get it, but I think that's even more important to come back to kind of your why and why it's important to you on those tough days, or if you're feeling homesick from where you've grown up or being away from family and friends that you're kind of used to being around, and so, it just makes it all worth it.
Mhm. I try to
Yeah.
take life advice from people who are living the life that I would like to live.
Yes.
And try not to listen to advice from people who are living lives that I
In
are
their little
not my
bubble.
yeah, are not how I would want to live. So it's just one way to
Yes.
be like, I also have the saying, I say, good for you, not for me.
I respect
Like
that,
if that's
but
good for you, but that's not gonna work for me, I'm
that's
gonna
not
do
my
it this
journey.
way. And so yeah, there's some again, it comes back to mindset and
Yes.
how you approach those things and just being really confident in your choices. But also,
Definitely.
again, it's also okay to have rough days. Like our first day in Spain, we had
You
a
probably will.
suitcase stolen and blah, blah, blah. It was like a terrible day. And I really was
Oh,
like, should we just go back home? And my
we're
husband
sure
was like,
about this.
no, absolutely not.
Colorado's looking really good right now.
And that was like, I thought I was well traveled, but at the same time, like, oh, these
Can
things
happen to
just
the
really
best of
can
us.
hit you when you're vulnerable. And so
Ugh,
it is okay to have rough days. It's not always going to be picture perfect. I
yeah.
do like to talk about the challenges because I think when we bring light to those, it
Yeah.
allows us to really look at this holistically. But I'll say some of those hard days are what sticks out to you, the like type
Yes.
B fun. Where
Yes.
later it's a great story to look back on,
Yeah, we could laugh about it one day.
Exactly.
It's so true. That's awesome. Susie, thank you so much for sharing your story, your family story, but also just so much, again, wisdom and expertise of making this leap and doing just some really amazing things for you and your family. Cause like again, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. But it clearly there's just so many benefits to it and just so many things that it can bring out in you as parents and your kids and all the things, and it's just constantly learning and being, like, inspired by the world, and it's, like, my favorite thing ever. I love having conversations like this for that reason, so just thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely. Thank you. This has been a lovely conversation.
Yes. Oh, last thing, where can people find
Oh,
you? So
yeah.
listen, I almost forgot, listen to your podcast, connect with you,
Yes.
learn more, all the things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. the Wander World School podcast is on all the podcast players. So we like to talk about the financial and logistical aspects of slow
Yeah.
and long-term travel and the world schooling opportunities that are available. So if someone has a family or thinking about traveling as a family at some point in the future, that would be a great resource. And then I have an Instagram, website, all that stuff at Suzy May Wander. And I do financial coaching, so helping people navigate their finances as they prepare for long-term and slow travel,
That's
as they
awesome.
prepare for a gap year. It's just nice to have, I'm a certified financial educator, so it's nice to have someone to talk to about the money stuff because sometimes we don't talk about that
That's
out
the
in the
scariest
open.
thing or maybe the thing that keeps people from doing
Mhm.
it and take yeah, 'cause it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we
Well,
can
that's
look
good.
at, like, how much come up with, like, an estimated travel budget
Yeah.
and what income may come with you, what you can offset from renting your house out and things at home, it's really, like, comes down to then, "Okay, maybe I actually only need to save up this amount to feel comfortable doing it." And, of
Yeah.
course,
It
everyone's gonna
feels
feel
overwhelming.
differently with what
Mhm.
their comfort level is for hitting the road, but I think it's great to have someone to talk to about that as well. So, for those
Definitely.
services as well.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Susie. I really appreciate your time today. I personally learned a lot and took away a lot. If nothing else, just how to potentially teach my daughter more Italian. So I'm grateful for
Yes,
that.
you can
But
do it. I'm
yeah,
happy that you're thinking about it. I mean, that's truly the first
yeah,
step is just saying like, "Hey, I'm interested in this," and, slowly making some progress because honestly, like, you have time to
yes, yeah.
continue to
She's
do
at
that.
like a
And
good age
so
for it. She
yeah.
knows 1 to 10 in Italian. I was very proud of that. And she can say like ciao ciao and like things like that. I'm like, okay, that's cute and that's good, but like let's do more.
Yes, keep it
So,
going.
feel
That's
very
great.
inspired
That's
now.
good.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Susie.
Yes, thank you.